Shalom and welcome to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heart lines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and this morning we're visiting with Nicole Johnson, author of Creating Calm in the Center of Crazy, Making Room for Your Soul in an Overcrowded Life. Nicole, welcome to the program.
Thank you so much. It's a privilege to be on. Thanks.
When I looked at your bio, it became apparent that your 20-year experience as an actor, television host, producer, publisher of 8 books, book studies, raising children, the center of crazy, which would be the eye of the storm, is kind of exactly where you live.
Yes. Yeah, that's absolutely right. That's absolutely right.
And apparently this is the answer, and I get this question a lot. I do 20 hours of live TV every week. I speak 4 days a week. I do 250 in-person engagements a year, as well as publish books. And they ask me, how do you do it? You have actually given an explanation of how people like ourselves, that we serve a God of redemption, and He redeems our time. I'll ask you this question. Do you find that as busy, and that's a worldly term, not a scriptural or biblical term.
Right.
Busy is what man calls it. Do you find that you have free time?
Yes, I do. I don't have a lot of it, but I think it's important. You know, as a creative, as you mentioned, I'm a writer and a producer. I think my best creativity comes in my downtime, in my free time, when I'm really not so focused on everything else that I'm doing. That's when often I will have my best ideas. So I think it's important.
So that's the fulfillment of be still and know that I am God.
Yes, or I like to say, stay busy and keep wondering if you are.
Well, there you are. There you are. You know, this journey of yours goes back 20 years, and all of those experiences led up to the book, but there's a period of your life that you're not 20 years old, so there had to be a foundation laid for you to, 1, be as productive, 2, to be as creative, and 3, to be as communicative as you are. Where do those influences come from? Where was the foundation laid?
Well, I think I would say probably in my family. My dad was in the Navy. He's a very, very hard worker. We probably all grew up under the really strong Protestant work ethic in the South where I was raised. And he was always doing something. He was always involved in this or that, or working, gardening, or, you know, people said of my father, he was the only one they ever knew to retire from the Navy and then retire from 2 more careers after that. So probably from my family, I guess I would say.
And was it a strong faith-based family, or was it a strong work ethic family? What would you consider to be every family, aside from dysfunctional, which, my family put the fun in dysfunctional.
Right.
How would you describe that family? You had siblings, you had a father in the Navy. Were you moved around? Were you deployed to different locations?
Yes, and then my parents divorced when I was very young. So if your family put the fun in dysfunction, mine took all the fun out of it. Just straight up dysfunction. Several marriages on my mom's side following that, and a lot of moving and a lot of turmoil and upheaval. That's definitely, for me at least, where some of the roots of the crazy began, in a much of a sense of just wanting to please, wanting to prove my worth, wanting to show the world I could do it.
So from a role model standpoint, you had Dad over here, but Dad was not present.
Correct.
There was a divorce that took place. So mom is there, and this is a model of, for whatever the reason for the divorce, mom is now back out dating. She's
Yep.
trying to connect. How many kids are there in the family?
Now there are 5, but that's been through, some steps and now some X steps. But there are 3 of us. My mom has 3 biological children.
Okay.
1 from her first marriage, and then my sister and I are from her second marriage.
So you came into a blended situation. How did that help shape who you were?
I think I probably came out of that, or was, formed in that, with an ability to adapt, with an ability to flex and to, read a room, to be able to sense other people's feelings and learn pretty quickly what the rules would be in any given situation. I've often said that holidays for me were like, spent with my nose pressed up against the glass of someone else's family life and home, because home was not really something that was really super strong for me growing up.
Did any or all or some or none have any kind of faith walk, church attendance? Was there anything that you would call consistent in all of this time of transition and craziness?
Yes, my father's family was Southern Baptist, and they were in church every Sunday. And my mother's family was Methodist, and they were a lot more lax. And we went to church camp sometimes, and the youth, was it YMF, and here and there. I lived with my mom, but it wasn't until I was a couple days before my 16th birthday when I came to faith, and it became a genuine, really conversion for me from my life of, even at that time, what I would say was pain and brokenness, to seek to find a God, or believe and put my faith and my trust in a God who loved me.
I'm going to ask you a question that will kind of give you an insight into my scriptural view of life and counseling. Do you think that if you would have had a present father, a quote-unquote stable, traditional family environment where your emotional, social, personal needs were filled, would you, in retrospect, think that you would have had a hunger or a longing for a relationship with God?
Eric,
Or is this how God orchestrated the wooing of you by allowing you to feel disconnected with a longing to be connected?
Yes. I've asked myself that and thought it through many times. Because it is what it is and was what it was, we can't know that, but I think that's absolutely part of it. The longing in me ran very deep, and the hunger in me for the sense of home and security and safety has always been very, very strong. And, I think in many ways I've shared that I probably went into acting because I wanted to walk in everybody else's shoes but my own. And no doubt that it shaped me tremendously. It's one of those, I always call them sort of dark gifts, where you have to manage and struggle your way through, only to realize that it's the very struggle that has allowed you to come out on the other side.
I often think that there are people like yourself, myself, who God was developing a strength in us because he was going to put something in our path that was going to be so overwhelming, so large, so insurmountable that the average person would run the other way, would not accept the challenge, would not press through. But because we had been conditioned, prepared, trained, and at the ready, when the opportunity was presented to us, I don't know that I was not smart enough not to answer the call. Does that make sense?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. And I don't know even that it has that much to do with intelligence as it does just all of that, as you mentioned, longings, emotions, feelings leading up to, what prompts us to make the decisions that we make.
In this time of transition, was there an issue of worthiness, or even what the world and certainly the darker side of the world would call worthlessness?
Yes.
Being unworthy, none of us are worthy.
Right, exactly.
We share that in common, 7.5 billion people.
Right.
Every birth, we're all born unworthy of the price that was paid for us.
Right.
But oftentimes what's presented as a sense of worthlessness, that we are not unworthy, but we are worthless. We are of no value because you were traded around like a pawn on a chessboard.
Right. That's right. I think people don't really understand the difference between worthless and unworthy. And worthless is having no worth, and unworthy is not deserving the worth that you have. And for a person of faith, it is to acknowledge that God has given us this enormous worth, but it hasn't come from what we've done. It's come from this love that he has for us. And when I was 6, my parents, as I mentioned, divorced, but it was probably 1972, and we went to court, and I had to testify which parent I wanted to live with both of them, sitting there with their attorneys. And it was just the ripping of the fabric of my life. And you're right, pawn is a very good word, simply because my parents didn't know. They didn't know how to do the kind of work that a lot of us are doing today. They didn't know that they were abdicating their greatest responsibility in the world to a judge and to the court that, would have no... it's just, it's definitely that's the crucible out of which we either, live or die.
I want to make a very strong point here that from 6 to 16, you were put in the position that your family unit was being torn apart. You were already in a step-sister relationship. This was your mother's second marriage, and now you're having to choose amongst the other children who are also having to make these choices. And you have a 10-year period of transition. How many more times did your mom marry and divorce in that 10-year period?
2 more.
2 more.
2 more.
So your concept, your foundational picture of marriage is completely unstable. Home is transitional
at best.
At best,
yep.
Transitional. Yep. Yet you did not become a person who is detached.
Mm.
You didn't wall yourself off from engaging in the family. And in fact, your response was much like Joseph, that in the midst of all of this, falsely imprisoned, put in situations, taken before the judges, going through all this, that your heart would be open to receive at age 16 the gift of salvation.
That God could use it for good. That's right.
Genesis 50, one of the greatest testimonies to God, what you meant for evil, God will work for good, for His good, so that many would be saved. When you came to faith, you're still living at home, you're 16, you're a teenager, you're in high school. The rest of the family now is, a new Nicole is walking in the door. What was the difference between the new Nicole and the old Nicole?
Well, the rest of the family was gone. I'm the baby of the family. And the new Nicole, it's not uncommon. And I was definitely in substance abuse up until that time. So I stopped drinking. I stopped using drugs and really started focusing on becoming a new creation in Christ. I remember saying in my prayer, Lord, I don't want to turn over a new leaf. I need a new tree. I need a new root system. I need a new way to live. And in essence, I need to be reparented. I need to be, in this metaphor, I need to be born again. I'd like a do-over. I'd like to start over. And so I think there was an enormous amount that changed, right there at 16.
You bring out a very important point. Statistically, we hear about 50% of all marriages end in divorce, that in the elementary middle school population of today, a single parent home is the norm.
Yeah.
This is part of the door opening up to life being too overwhelming for a child, and therefore they turn to drugs and alcohol to cover, to not have to deal with, to be moved into another consciousness so that they don't have to deal with all these adult issues, because these adult issues are way too great a burden for children.
It's exactly right. But we don't have words at the time. We just know that pain, there's anger, and again, not sure what to do with those things. It wouldn't be till later, looking back, that I could narrate some of that story and how much pain I was carrying. That's the really difficult stuff for kids, is that, we have to wait sort of 20 years to find out how we're doing as parents, how things have gone or are going, because we try to stay connected. But oftentimes, until children grow and can begin to write their own story and tell their own narrative, that we can see, wow, maybe I was living in my narrative and there was a whole different narrative going on in my kids.
So you're now the last child at home, and you're with dad number 3?
My number 3, right.
Yeah,
my mom's 4th,
yeah,
right.
Your dad number 3. Did that have any impact on your relationship with him?
Yes, my coming to faith. Now, interestingly enough, and he is a man of faith, of great faith today, but he was not when I was growing up. And so my coming to faith and my zealousness, I think, caught him quite off guard, and maybe even my mom a bit, who was a Christian, but how do we say, sort of a salad bar Christian, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, right. It'll all work out, that sort of thing. So he was very into the origin of the species, and we made a deal that if I would read the origin of the species, and he would read the Bible. And so, our dinner table was always very lively with discussions and commentary and conversation about faith.
Your remaining high school years, you get involved in a church, you get involved in a youth group, or
yes,
you get connected with a different set of friends, because the ones you were drinking and drugging with, now you're now the other guy.
Yes.
You're the one that you used to point at.
Right, that's exactly right.
So you are now a new creation, you have a new self-image, and your thoughts towards the future, obviously in this turmoil world of multiple marriages and new family members, and mom goes to Walmart, brings home a new husband, brings home a new child, a completely different experience than most people are used to. How did those next years help shape a vision for you for who you saw yourself in the future?
You know, there's some, we don't ever really get free. We just continue to get more free and more free and more free. And there were some decisions in there that weren't my best. And I was headed to Florida State to study theater, and when I came to faith, I really began to question that, not the theater realm, but just where I was going to study. And I ended up in a small liberal college, liberal arts college in Birmingham, Alabama, called Samford, which was a tremendous school, and I got a great education. But I married.
And you know we're in Birmingham.
Oh, no, I didn't know.
Yes.
Oh, that's great. Well, of course you know Samford. And I married right out of college. I think I was on the fast track to security. I think I was really, really longing to prove I could do this differently. And 13 years later, that marriage ended in divorce. And it was probably the most difficult and, of course, shame-producing and all sorts of adjectives that we could fill in the blank on.
Well, I'm sorry to hear that. I was honestly hoping you would say to me that, you know, I'm getting ready to celebrate my 25th.
25th, yes, I know.
Wedding anniversary. But
I am getting ready to celebrate my 12th, and I have two wonderful kids, 10 and 7, and I got it right second time. Good. You know, sometimes our brain, because our brain isn't finished developing, you know, until we're 24 or 25. I think, not saying everybody should postpone marriage. I just think that major life decisions until, you know, making before you're 24 or 25 is probably not the best idea.
I completely agree. I have a daughter who will be 28 in 4 days, and so
wow.
She almost got married 4 years ago, and circumstances changed that, and now she has a much different idea of, you know, I can now wait.
Yes.
And I can choose exactly. I'm no longer on a timetable.
Right.
That's off the table. So
right.
The pressure, yes, her friends are getting married, but she's not compelled to pursue that.
Right. More time to figure out who she is before she makes a decision about a life partner.
Exactly. In all your experiences and all the books you've written, what has been the driver, the one thing that keeps you bringing a message forward, bringing a message forward, bringing a message forward? You know, there's people that are given a message and they deliver the message. Mm-hmm. But you've authored 8 books, you present, you lead, you have women's retreats, you have so much going on. The drive, either a scripture or a very concise vision statement that engraved, that carved in stone, what is that for you?
You gravitate toward the really easy questions. That's really awesome. You know, I think part of it is to communicate, and, you know, as Francis of Assisi said, when necessary, you know, use words, preach the gospel. I think for me, it really is to communicate the love, the grace, and the mercy of God to a world that knows so little of those things. I really think without that discovery of faith, without, you know, the hound of heaven sort of knocking me down, licking my face when I was 16 years old, I don't think my life would look the same. And I think we try to find so many answers to some of our deepest questions and the ripping of our fabric in our culture without any kind of backdrop of faith. And I just see it fail time and time again.
So the drive is to make sure the message is getting out and using yourself and your experiences of the ping pong ball life that
Right.
God had you living, the back and forth between two worlds, and finding a definition of love completely outside of the home,
Right.
where the concept of love is usually established. In your case, the concept of love was confusing. It was hard to pin down. It was something you couldn't grab a hold of, but yet you found it with the Lord. We're talking with Nicole Johnson, author of the newly released book, Creating Calm in the Center of Crazy, Making Room for Your Soul in an Overcrowded Life. We've kind of laid the foundation for this journey that's led up to the writing of this book, and we're going to take a short break, and when we return, we're going to take a walk through this book and grab a hold of some of the ways that you can create calm in the center of crazy. Crazy is different for everybody, but crazy is still crazy, no matter how it looks. We'll be right back. Shalom. I'm the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, Executive Director of Igniting a Nation and host of the daily TV program Revealing the Truth, seen live every Monday through Friday from 9 a.m. to 1 p.m. Central Standard Time at www.ianbn.com, and then replayed throughout the day and night via our website. All of our segments can be seen on the Igniting a Nation YouTube channel. Since our launch in January of this year, we've expanded our global reach to over 54 countries with a social media following of over 125,000. Our commitment is to bring you the most in-depth interviews with authors, subject matter experts, and thought leaders from around the world. We have interviewed guests from Israel, Brazil, England, India, and all across North America. All of our authors are featured on the Books and Media page on our website, www.ianbn.com. There you can find a direct link to the book you want to order, and we receive a small commission directly from Amazon. There is no cost to you for this service. In addition to our daily teachings and interviews, we make available to you the archive of all of the interviews on our YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram channels. Our live program is available from our homepage, and there is never a charge to you for any of this access. We made the decision long ago that we would remain a commercial-free resource that would not be influenced by any pressure from any outside company. There are only two ways that we are able to continue to operate this ministry and provide you with the only live 4-hour daily Christian television talk show program. The first is through your support and tax-deductible contributions to Igniting a Nation. These can be made directly through the donate button on the website or sent through the mail to Igniting a Nation, 2700 Corporate Drive, Suite 120, Birmingham, Alabama, 35242. The other way we support the program is by offering you a unique opportunity to have access to over 10 years worth of teachings on a subscription basis. The teaching archives contains all of my prior sermons, Torah studies, prophecy in the news videos, and much more for the low subscription price of $5 per month. This subscription grants you unlimited access to over 800 hours of content not available elsewhere and is updated weekly with the most current prophecy classes. In addition to 20 hours of original TV programming each weekday, we invite you to join us live every Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday evenings for our Prophecy in the News classes. The times and locations are listed on our events page on the website www.ianbn.com. Every day, you and I are faced with the challenge of where we will go to hear the truth. We are committed to bring you the only program of its kind that covers the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. We cannot do this without your support. Since we launched on January 5th, 2017, we have aired over 300 individual teachings, interviews, and commentaries not available anywhere else. We are now working side by side with almost every major Christian publishing house to bring you the most in-depth feature interviews possible. Our one-hour features address every subject that affects the believer's life. We are hearing of salvations from the Middle East, Africa, and all across the United States. Lives are being changed every day, and we have only just begun. Our mission is to become your trusted resource and grant you access to the people, tools, and information you need to grow in your relationship with the Lord. You can help us by liking us on social media and through your financial support. We know you have many choices in who you support, but we are prayerfully asking you to consider helping us keep revealing the truth, true to our calling, to cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth like no other program available. Donate today and help us bring the message to the four corners of the earth. Visit www.ianbn.com and donate, buy a book, or subscribe to our teaching archives. Without you, we do not exist. Shalom and welcome back to this edition of Revealing the Truth, where we cover the headlines, the heartlines, and biblical truth. I'm your host, the Reverend Rabbi Eric Walker, and we're visiting with Nicole Johnson, author of the newly released book, Creating Calm in the Center of Crazy, Making Room for Your Soul in an Overcrowded Life. In our first segment, we talked with Nicole at great length about this life of instability, rocky, shaky, relationship, counter relationship upbringing and training.
Crazy.
Crazy, exactly. Yet devoted to a life that is productive, contributing, and making a difference. And here I sit looking at you, and I look at the long resume, 8 books, acting, constantly on the go, raising a family, being a faithful wife, and you're telling people how to create calm in the center of crazy, and you start out by talking about your journey out of crazy, which is such a great point to start with, because sympathy is a gift I give you, and I walk away and I've delivered the sympathy. Compassion is something I have for you, but it can be present, it can be non-present, it can be active, it can be passive. Empathy, on the other hand, is deeply connected, ongoing, and eternal, because we're walking the same path. We share a common bond, and we're coming from the same place. You have now walked through crazy, but yet your life is still crazy.
Right.
This is not a book on delivering you from crazy.
No.
This is being in the storm with the E5 turbulent winds around you, and looking at that Google Earth scan of that hurricane and seeing that in the center, in the eye of the storm, it's a beautiful sunshiny day. And you have really no concept that you are encircled by a whirlwind of crazy. So you start out in the book with your very first chapter, your journey out of crazy. You say, pain is the megaphone God uses to rouse a deaf world, wrote C.S. Lewis in The Problem of Pain. I wouldn't have said I was deaf, but pain was the megaphone that halted my crazy world. Pain brings life screeching to a halt, sometimes for days or months, and sometimes just for a moment. Fortunately, a moment is all it takes. In the spring of 2012, you experienced a crisis. Not in your marriage, not with your children, but in a long-standing, cherished friendship. Take us through this.
Well, Eric, I was living in crazy, as so many do, just managing, spinning all my plates, putting myself living under pressure, multitasking, overcommitting, comparing myself to others, all those sorts of things. But pain has a way of, I call them step on a rake moments, where all of a sudden you're going along and kapow, something hits you right in the face and gets your attention. And for me, that moment was an email from a 15-year friendship from a friend, basically saying she really didn't want to be friends. And it brought my world to a screeching halt. I didn't understand. I didn't know where it came from. I didn't know why. And I wasn't given an opportunity to even speak into it or try to fix it. And all of a sudden, and this is the real key point for so many, when you stop, you recognize how crazy everything is around you. But when you're in the E5 winds, as you described it, with everybody else, you can't comment on that. You can't even see it. You're just caught up in it. But when you stop and everybody else is still really going around like crazy, you go, wow, I think life was crazier than I ever knew that it was.
So you had to come face to face with, first of all, the tragedy of the loss of a friend without explanation. Forgive my pastoral counseling observation, but that defines age 6 to age 16 for you, where you watch relationships begin and end.
Yeah, and go. That's right.
And you had no idea what the cause was. You have no idea why mom and new dad split.
Right.
And you just had to live with it. This sounds to me like God wasn't finished.
Right. That's
that
right.
Story. He was preparing you now in adulthood to go back and see that that's exactly.
Right.
You were already experienced in that message receiving mode, but now as an adult, you're now processing in a way of assessing, my life's crazy. Yeah.
And this stopping revealed that, but you're absolutely right. I've done enough work to know that, what's hysterical is historical. And for me, I was paralyzed and I couldn't figure out why. I mean, I was devastated and sad by this friendship. coming to an end, but there was something I couldn't let go of. I couldn't just think, okay, well, you know, that's the way life goes sometimes. I was stuck, and I couldn't move forward, and I couldn't go backwards. And there's a great website called The Question Beneath the Question that for corporations helps, you know, get to the right question, because I would call this then what I began to discover is the pain beneath the pain.
Right.
That what was happening for me, it's very unproductive to ask, why is this happening? Why did this happen? Those answers weren't available to me. The question that was the most helpful was, where in my life have I felt this before? And
you know, it's interesting when you go to the doctor and you say, "Doctor, I have a pain," and it's located in your abdomen, let's say.
Yeah.
And so he begins to press and say, "Does that hurt?" You go, "No." "Does that hurt?" "No."
Yeah.
"Does that hurt?" And you cry out in pain.
That's right.
What does he always do? He
Press it
always
again.
presses it again.
Right.
Why?
That's what I don't like about doctors.
Right. Why? Because first he has to identify with the location. Now he's beginning to look at the source.
Right. Right. Exactly.
You went through that with this phone call. You had a pain, and you had to press it again.
Oh, right.
And again and again and again until you could find the source
Yeah.
of the pain.
That's exactly right. And it's not a great process, because a lot of people, myself included, we want to run. You know, we don't want to keep pressing it. There's something in our brains, probably the survival instinct, that's like, don't press that again. We know what happens when you press that, and it hurts. So stop doing that. Except that, knowing what we know, we can't get to the source. We can't treat what's really wrong unless we can figure out why it's causing us such pain. And that is the beginning of creating calm, is following those things to the source. And I realized I had spent way more time in my life trying to control the crazy on the outside than I ever had trying to create calm on the inside.
You know, God always uses the natural to reveal supernatural truths.
Right.
You probably, somewhere in your body, have a scar from an old injury, and you could even press on that scar, it's not going to hurt because it's healed. Right. However, you come to a point like this, and you press on a place where it appears healed and healthy on the surface, but
Yep.
when you realize that it healed from the outside in,
Right on.
you have to go back and excise it.
Right.
You have to open it back up and go in and go down to the very root of the infection, and then allow the process for it to then heal completely, so that I'll still have the reminder, but I won't have the pain.
The pain. That's exactly right. Well said. And I like to say, you know, I wish it didn't take a crisis to sort of cause us to do some of this work, but it almost always does. There's a great comedian, he was sort of making fun of the statement, you know, guns don't kill people, people kill people. But he said, you know, a gun, it really helps. And a crisis helps when we're trying to change things that we've wanted to change, because it takes some kind of a perspective altering event to be able to see, again, to stop us and give us the clarity to see what's going on around us. And that was definitely true for me.
As you chronicle your journey, and you certainly do, you took time to identify those things which constitute crazy: distraction, overcommitment, multitasking, comparison,
yeah.
pressure, and you go through all this, and I probably know 1,000 people, if not more, that are caught up in this tsunami.
Yes.
And could clearly identify with this. And it requires you to stop and call it for what it is. You can't manipulate your way out of it. You have to dig into it. You have to take that plunge into the bottom of the chasm in order to find out what it is that's still down there.
That's exactly right. For real change. And I think people love advice, they love new apps, they love, but I've been a real simple subscriber for 10 years, and my life isn't any more simple than it was before I started subscribing, because information alone doesn't change us. If it did, no one would smoke anymore. No one would, engage in high-risk behavior. Information is not enough. And even the word balance, I hate the word balance, because my life doesn't balance out. I just limp a lot, and I lean to one side and I lean to the other side when life, sort of demands that I do. And people talk about balance like it's some sort of holy grail of our spiritual life, but I don't find that anywhere. Like, balance, if balance means not falling over all the time, I'll give you that. But if it means making everything come out even, like a compartmentalized kid's plate, my life doesn't work like that. And I think women put themselves under a lot of pressure and shame when we can't get that right, and I don't think it's a biblical concept.
You clearly convey an identifiable description of crazy, but you also give a blueprint for creating calm. And what's interesting about your title and about the content of your book is this is not a book of searching for how to find calm.
That's right.
Which there's a lot of books out there about how to find
1, 2, 3, 4.
Exactly.
Right. Tips. Okay. Right.
Exactly. Yours is active, so it's almost a contradiction. I am in the center of crazy, and honestly, if somebody asked me to take on one more thing, I'd blow my brains out. Right. But unless you create the calm in the center of crazy, you have no way out.
Right. That's exactly right. It's very paradoxical, right? It's very counterintuitive. And Blaise Pascal, the 16th century theologian, mathematician, said the problem with man is he doesn't know how to sit quietly in his own room. And I think that's incredibly insightful. I think it's true of women. We don't know how to sit quietly in any room, let alone our own room. And this process of learning to get still, of learning to, because when we get still, or when we start to get still, the questions ramp up. Our minds start racing through all the things that we should be doing instead of being still. All our fears sort of come to the surface, and we want to go clean out the garage instead of, sitting quietly in our own room. It's very difficult to do. But you're absolutely right in that if we can start there, if we can create that calm center inside of ourselves, a space just for ourselves, a room of our own, a place where we can meet with God, a place where we can reboot our own identities with Scripture, then that's the way out. The way in is the way out. And it has to start from the inside. Otherwise, it's just, again, more tips and a better calendar program. And 5 years down the road, nothing has changed.
It's interesting that when you laid out the book, you laid it out in a rather extraordinary way. the first is the definition of crazy, and it's quite relatable.
Right.
Then you talk about that first you have to go in, because unless you create the calm within,
right,
you're reacting to the crazy without. You're ill-equipped. If you were equipped, you wouldn't be in the center of crazy.
Right.
So if you already came wired with that, you wouldn't be or define your world as crazy. Hectic, overcommitted.
Rushed, hassled, harried, right.
All those things. And that defines every person in their vehicle in rush hour traffic right now. That defines every person that walks into their office building only to find out that the boss wants to see you.
Right.
Or you get up, you make the 2-hour drive, and you find out the person that you had the appointment with put it on the wrong day of the calendar,
right.
And you've made this trip, and it cost you over here, and now you're in this repair mode. You're in functional insanity.
Yeah.
You are a functioning, paranoid, schizophrenic, megalomaniac, all of those things, and you're functioning, but there is no calm.
Not living, right. Walker Percy says you can get all A's and still flunk life. And in many ways, we just try to go from task to task to task. But I would say, and I'm curious to see if you think, we're in a crisis of meaning in our culture. We're on information overload. We have all the information we need at our fingertips, but we don't know what it means or what to do with it. We're not involved in any bigger narrative. We're not seeing ourselves as part of the world. We're seeing, the world that we create, and that's all. And we're in charge of it. And there's no room in that to be still and know that God is God. We just, again, keep circling and think that we're in charge of everything.
Well, the sovereignty of God says that chaos is going to come to this earth to create a dividing line for an ultimate battle that's going to take place to fulfill the oldest prophecy of the Bible of Genesis 3:15, the seed of the woman and the seed of the serpent. And we've spent 2,000 years talking about the seed of the woman. That's all we talk about. We have totally ignored the seed of the serpent, and we're going to be shocked and awed that there is going to be an Antichrist and there is going to be a dividing line, and this is all going to happen.
Right.
So we're so caught up in our own world, our own frenzy, that we're our own chai tea latte machine creating this foam. But back to your book, you give a way to take the calm that you find within and apply it without, which will create room for the gift of discernment. It will create room for the spiritual gifts to be operative. It will create room in your thought life to actually hear the message, receive the message, and process the message. Where now our filters, we're thinking in the service about arrangements, and our cell phone in our pocket, which should be in the car or at home on Sunday morning, is vibrating, and we're wondering, oh, maybe I should check it. Maybe I should. And so we are so distracted. And what you've done is you've created a way to say crazy's real, but it's not healthy. It's like Paul says, all things are lawful, but not all things are beneficial. Crazy's lawful, but crazy's not beneficial. You truly reinforce the first thing you have to do is admit you have a problem.
Yes.
You have to admit your life is crazy.
It's crazy.
and you want to do something about it, which requires some soul searching. But it is for the purpose of finding that inner peace that we were promised.
Right.
That Jesus, after 40 days, said, I am now going to prepare a place for you, but I am going to send the Comforter. We seem to have missed the receipt of the Comforter because we're still crazy.
Yes.
So the Comforter has to be within. We have to find that calm where the Comforter, the Holy Spirit, can be active.
Yes.
And then when we apply and we use the power and the anointing of the Holy Spirit, we then go to the third part in this journey. From your journey out of crazy, creating calm on the inside, then being an instrument to bring calm to the outside through boundaries, through keys, through calm, through an understanding of the Word.
Right.
We've been talking with Nicole Johnson, talking about her crazy life. She has a great story, but out of that great story came her coming face to face with their own crazy making. And what was she going to do about it? Was she going to remain in the center of crazy, or was she going to find calm? And when she found that calm was too good not to share with our audience in this great book. I strongly encourage you to get a hold of a copy of Creating Calm in the Center of Crazy, Making Room for Your Soul in an Overcrowded Life by Nicole Johnson from our good friends at Zondervan. Nicole, what a pleasure it's been to have you on the program.
Thank you so much, Eric. Thank you.
I look forward to seeing you again. We're going to take a short break, and when we return, we'll bring you the next edition of Revealing the Truth. We'll be right back.